Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to this brand new segment for Year of No Gear. I haven't decided quite what I'm going to call it yet, but basically, we've been having a little bit of trouble getting some guests pinned down. We've had some technical issues. Don't worry, the interviews are still coming. We're still getting all sorted for that. But in between those, and just to break it up a little bit, I thought both for myself and for you guys, it would be a nice thing to go through some of my gear and explain the sentimental reasons behind it. I'm not going to get too geary with this. I'm not going to kind of talk about spec too much, but I'd like to, have these as kind of like snapshots of things I had and explain why I'm keeping them and the sentimental reason behind them, because I'm finding that's why stuff sticks around. It's because it has some sort of it has a certain job, or I've done gigs with it, and those are ultimately the ones that are sticking around. So don't worry, the interviews are still coming. Make sure if you're on YouTube to hit subscribe, and we'll get more interviews. But so today we're going to talk about this guitar. So I'll go the other side. This is my 2011 Les Paul Junior. I bought this guitar. I can't remember the exact year I bought this, but the reason I bought this guitar was I joined a function band called Stereo Jacks. I had a great few years with them. It was kind of my first or my second big project, I suppose, out of university. And I originally joined as a lead guitar player, and when I joined that band, I started as a lead guitar player. So as I joined that band, I was a lead guitar player, and I was playing a humbucker Strat, so a 5-position blues Strat. It had been my guitar all the way through university, and it was great. And in having it, I just found it was the perfect guitar for playing lead, but their singer used to commute from London. So when we used to do gigs, he might be unavailable, and they had a real nightmare finding singers. I was able to do backing vocals, and from that they found I could sing fairly well, and they asked if he couldn't make gigs if I could sing, and I said sure, that sounds like good fun. I've sung in a band before. And then when I started singing in that band and I started playing, with that 5-position Strat, it just was a pain to be moving positions of the switch. If I had pedals as well, I had other things to think about, and my priorities changed quite quickly with what I wanted as a guitar for playing with, because I found that it was better for me if I had less options on the floor. I let the effects and everything get taken care of by our lead guitar player, and then I would just essentially want something that I could bang chords out with. I essentially wanted an electric version of an acoustic guitar. And I've looked for a guitar like that for years, long thought that the Les Paul Junior would be it, and I was quite pleased to find out that it was. Because, as you can see here, again, I'm going to do that a lot. This is a very simple instrument. It is one pickup, one volume, one tone. Okay, it's got this bridge on it that doesn't intonate perfectly, but neither does an acoustic guitar. And I find this guitar is quite loud acoustically. I don't know if the mic will pick that up, but it's definitely probably one of the loudest electrics unplugged that I have, and it's really ringy, and the P90 sounds great. The P90 is really versatile with the volume and tone controls. I'll just give you a little example of how I would have used it on gigs. So this is a similar sort of sound to what I would have, I guess, on a show. I would be... That would be a similar sort of noise to where I'd be at. And I would start with everything on 7. I would plug into a tuner directly into the amp. The amp would be driving. I used to play through an AC30. I'm not playing through an AC30 right now. I'm playing through my Fender Concert, but I would be playing through an AC30. And there just wasn't a gig where I didn't plug this into my AC30 combo and it didn't just sound perfect. And then the way I would get around it is if I wanted to play like I was an acoustic guitar player, I would roll this volume back to about 2 or 3, roll the tone all the way up, and then I get this really lovely, like, clean sound. So a riff I used to do quite a lot with this sound was something like... That'd be a good little tester to see what that would sound like. And then when I wanted things dirtier, I could either be at 7, I could bring the tone back to 5. And it kind of fattens it up, like it takes that transience off and gets that lovely. Especially if I roll up to 10, I can get more gain out, right? So if I did something like... that would be how I would use this. And it really did. It became my electric acoustic guitar. You know, all the chords sounded great. It intonated fairly well. But for the job I needed it for, it was perfect. I bought it from a guy in Exeter. I'd wanted one for years, and the reason being, I'm a big fan of these guitars. Some of my favorite tones with this have obviously been like Billy Joe Armstrong's live stuff off of like the American Idiot record. Like this was great, and if you look at the guitars he's recording with, a lot of those Green Day tracks were done with a 59 Les Paul and a 52 Esquire, which when you play a Les Paul Junior, it's kind of the perfect halfway house between a Tele and a Les Paul, you know. Also, Keith Urban, I'm a big Keith Urban fan. He had a great lead tone on a track called Stupid Boy. If you get a chance, check out YouTube. Go and find Stupid Boy from the Love, Pain and Whole Crazy Thing tour. He hits this one note with Stupid Boy, and it's the most incredible tone. So I really, really fell in love with that. And I even found that guitar players that weren't, or people that weren't known as guitar players who played other instruments, really gravitated to these as well. Songwriters especially, they're great songwriter guitars. Two of the guys I saw who I was quite surprised by were Richard Marx, who's famous for Right Here Waiting and various other like 80s songs. And then Billy Joel, when he plays We Didn't Start the Fire, he uses a red one of these and plays using that. And they're just really great, simple animals. And in some cases, I actually think I like the sound of this better than I like a Les Paul Standard. Case in point, I actually don't own another Les Paul or even another Gibson Electric right now. This is the only one I'm working with. So my sentimental reason for having this and hanging on to it is because, well, first of all, I love it. I learned so much from just having one pickup. I learned how to use my volume and tone controls, and that now gets used on all my other guitars. So that has its benefits. But on the other side of that as well, it's that it took me a while to realize this guitar has basically become the wedding guitar, and this guitar has seen so many people get married. And that's quite corny when you think about it. I was in that band for about 5 years, and we were probably doing 2 or 3 gigs, you know, every weekend. So 52 weeks in a year, let's say 50 weeks in a year, times that by 2, probably did 100 gigs a year. I did 5 years. That was about, you know, that was 500 couples. 500 couples who you see them on their wedding day, on their happiest day that they're going to have, and they get married. And, you know, normally I would play a first dance on this, or I would be sat there waiting while they were cutting the cake and holding this guitar. I actually think that's where some of this wear has come from, is just from me resting over the top of it waiting for people to get started. But it's really simple. It taught me so much about, you know, how much these controls can really stop you from buying other instruments, because you can learn to manipulate if you set up your amp in the right way. And it's seen so many weddings, and it still has that perfect thing where if I want something to just play chords and I want like a really fat sounding, you know, just a classic rock sound, this has it in spades. It's not pretty, there's nothing special about it, it's just a pickup in a lump of wood, and it saw nothing but happiness for 5 years. It went out on the weekends, it did people's weddings, it's seen 500 couples get married, it's seen birthday parties, it's just had such a cool life. And I actually personally always like the red double cut Les Paul Juniors. I think they look better, but every time I've thought about investing in one of those, I've just thought, but this one's done the time. And it might not be the most special, you know, it's not a custom shop or anything, it's just a mainline 2011 USA. I bought this for 500 quid from a guy in Exeter who I think it just stayed in the case, and it's done the time, and that's why it's still here with me now. So there's my little 10-minute video on this guitar. I'm going in chronological order, so this is the oldest out of the guitars I've got. All the other ones I got later, and they've got their own experiences. So what I'd love to hear is in the comments of either the YouTube video or Facebook. I'd love for you to like tell me some of the stories of what your guitars mean to you, or special gigs you've done, and ones you won't get rid of because of that. And yeah, in between the weeks of us not having guests, I'm going to post up one of these videos. I've got about 6 instruments, so that means you got 6 videos coming. I might stretch it out to certain pedals or maybe amps. I haven't really decided, but yeah, for now, keep your gear habits under wraps. And again, look at your gear and think, do these guitars have a story? Because ultimately, this sentimental aspect to them for me is what's kept guitars around and why they're ultimately staying. Not any of these weird, you should have this, you should have that anymore. I'm trying to really focus on, do I have a connection to these, and what is it? So thanks for checking out the channel, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers.